Welcome to Conscious Matters. It's a safe space where we chat about how living consciously matters to our well-being, to the one of our surroundings and loved ones, as well as to the earth and humanity as a whole. Join me, Melissa DeBerry, for inspiring interviews with some of the most beautiful souls out there, individuals who are helping others to reach their highest selves and who bring light into this world. In every episode, we talk about conscious matters such as self-love, awareness, personal development, the power of yoga and meditation, self-medicine, the rise of holistic practices, and much more. We expand on our experiences, share tools that help live in peace, harmony, and alignment on a daily basis, and discuss about what we've learned along our healing journey. Get your mind, body, and soul ready for a ride in consciousness. Namaste, listeners.
If you have already listened to part 1 of this episode, you can skip the intro, timestamp, and the show notes. If not, what have you been doing? Check out the first part now. It will make much more sense. No matter what ethnicity you are, what religion you practice, whether or not you are carnivore or vegan, Ayurveda can work for you and help you live a healthier and happier life. I've recently been asked several times what got me to make a podcast. In all honesty, at first, I've been struggling giving air quote rational answer. Since launching this podcast back in December 2019, it was truly about me following my intuition and acting on my gut feeling. My intention with this podcast, Conscious Matters, has always been to deeply grasp the abstract concept of consciousness and to share with people a practical approach of consciousness. In other words, the blend of mindfulness and awareness and how to apply it to the everyday life. And to hopefully reach someone somewhere who doesn't necessarily have access to conscious living extensive knowledge nor tools so they can live a better and healthier life too. Spreading awareness to make the world a better place, one individual at a time. I don't know why, but humanity betterment is very important to me. So I guess that's like part of the motivation too. It's also a way for me to support and uplift entrepreneurs in the wellness space by having them on to share their own stories and expertise. So if you wondered, that's my answer. But yeah, it can evolve too. With that in mind, let's try something new today. Usually I talk about practices that I've been incorporating in my life for a while. Today is going to be a little bit different. Um, I've heard about Ayurveda for years, initially in the green beauty industry while I was working as a brand strategist for an innovative, eco-conscious vegan beauty brand. So it was more Ayurveda in beauty products. And a few years later, I heard about Ayurveda again in spa environments and massages and all. But recently, I've learned that a huge chunk of Ayurveda is actually related to food. So I was like, that's so interesting because I've been following vegetarian diet for almost 3 years now. I mean, it's closer to a vegan diet at this point, but that's a whole other conversation. Anywho, I'm digressing. So let's go back to the topic. I know that food is actually medicine. What we put in our bodies can either harm us or heal us. That's just a fact. Despite eating vegetarian, I have felt like I was not getting all of the benefits of this diet. I've still been suffering from a very sensitive stomach and most probably unknown intolerances to some foods. So, yeah, that's not a joy. That's not funny. But as I like experimenting with different things, I felt like it was time for me to give Ayurveda a try from a food standpoint. So that's what I'm doing. Since the beginning of the year, I've been incorporating a few Ayurveda practices here and there, like easing my stomach before each meal with ginger and warm beverages, taking some Trifali tablets. They're actually a specific mix of spices to ease digestion. And oh my God, it changed everything. Such a relief. this is crazy. This is insane. Ginger is a stomach savior, y'all. Why didn't I know about that? Nevertheless, the more I was diving deep into Ayurveda medicine, the more I discovered that this ancient traditional medicine is way beyond food, spices, and massage oils. It's a whole healing concept that blends various healing practices to reach one and only goal, which is to align your mind, body, and soul. I find that so incredibly fascinating. Like having this one single system that covers the wellness of your entire being, physical, mental, and energetical, if that's even a word. So, the main purpose of Ayurveda is preventing diseases instead of curing them. Literally mind blown. Like, we don't have to wait to be sick to take care of our bodies and to actually prevent these diseases from happening. To me, it's so logical, and I don't understand why our system is not working like that right now. But once again, that's a whole other combo. But I'm actually going to read you a fantastic definition of Ayurveda before getting further into it. It goes like that. Ayurvedic medicine, Ayurveda for short, is one of the world's oldest holistic whole body healing system. It was developed more than 5,000 years ago in India. It's based on the belief that health and wellness depend on a delicate balance between the mind, body, and spirit. Its main goal is to promote good health, not fight disease, but treatments may be geared towards specific health problems. Everything in the universe, dead or alive, is connected. If your mind, body, and spirit are in harmony with the universe, you have good health. When something disrupts this balance, you get sick. Among the things that can upset this balance are genetics or birth defects, injuries, climate and seasonal change, age, and your emotions. Wow. If you're not sold on that, I don't know what will. No, but it's true. I'm serious. But at the same time, I'm just kidding because you do you. But yeah, that's to me is mind blowing. But let's gain some more knowledge about this amazing holistic medicine. In all honesty, I'm still learning about Ayurveda. I'm far from being able to educate anybody about it, but I just wanted to have you join along my discovery process through this podcast. Ayurveda medicine is so many things in one that it was a bit hard structuring all of the questions that I have because I got many. I got so many. It's beyond ridiculous. But since Ayurveda is all about aligning our mind, body, and soul, I'm going to follow this pattern and make a three-part series with three different Ayurveda experts. We'll start with the body, follow up with the mind, and wrap everything up with the soul, aligning the body with the help of Ayurveda medicine. For this episode today, to talk about that, I invited the woman who's doing it all, Dr. Sheetal Ajmani. Not only she's a pediatric physician, she's also a best-selling author, Ayurveda lifestyle consultant, and yoga instructor. She's also the founder of Radiant Living, a wellness business where she helps strong, successful women get unstuck and live radiantly again. I'm so happy to have her on today. So let's dive in. But don't forget to stay tuned for part two, aligning your mind with Ayurveda, and part three, aligning your soul with Ayurveda. But right now, let's focus on the body. Listen up to the jam. Namaste, listeners. Hi, Shito.
Hi, Melissa.
We're back at it.
Yeah, I guess we'll just go with it because even with the questions that you had, I was like, oh, there's so much I could talk about with it. So I'll try to, keep it to a, level where it's enough, but not too much at the same time, not overwhelming.
Yeah. Let's jump in. Premises of Ayurveda.
It's more important because a lot of people, as they learn about this, get focused on, well, what is my dosha? And I just want to emphasize here, it's more important actually to get an understanding of just what these elements are, what the qualities of them are, and being able to recognize it within yourself and within nature than it is to pinpoint and identify what is that dosha that you were born with, right? It's actually more important to see, well, where am I out of alignment here? What qualities of my activities, of my diet, of my daily lifestyle routine do I need to bring in to restore that alignment?
But at the same time, since we all unique with a specific composition, isn't it super important to know which dosha are predominant within yourself to know how to find kind of air quotes here like solution to know towards which diet you have to go to, what kind of activities you should increase, and the ones that you should kind of let on the side for a moment at
Yeah,
least?
it's most helpful to know actually what is out of balance or what is out of alignment, because then that's what you need to work on
Yeah.
in terms of the diet that you're going to choose to follow, the activities that you do, the body work practices, the mind body practices that you do to restore that alignment. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, having an understanding of these doshas, of the elements and the qualities. So this is another word, guna, which just means qualities of these elements is definitely important and is very useful. And that is part of that sort of self-awareness and self-recognition that you're able to cultivate as you continue to dive deeper in studying Ayurveda or working with a consultant.
Yeah. And actually, that's why I wanted to do a body episode with you, because to me, Ayurveda is so incredible, and I still don't know why it's not that mainstream yet, but that's another tangent. But it's so much about learning, I mean gaining awareness of yourself, your mind, your body, your spirit, and also learning about your body, because I think something that lacks in our Western system, educational system, is the how we are disconnected from our body. It's just like we eat for the sake of eating, but not about finding the right nutrients for your own physical composition. So
Mhm.
I love that is about diving into learning and awareness about yourself too and how your body function. Could you talk a little bit about the emphasis of Ayurveda medicine puts on eating organic, local, and seasonal food that's specifically tailored to your constitution, and also taking time in nature daily to calm the nervous and digestive systems? Because everything is linked. So I would be very interested to know more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Nature, according to Ayurveda, nature provides us everything that we need.
Yeah.
Nature, there is this self-intelligence and there is nature's intelligence. And so in terms of eating organic, local, and seasonally, nature is providing what your body needs for the season, right? That's why, we're recording this in summertime here. We were just mentioning before we recorded that it's getting really hot
Yes.
out where both of us are. And so naturally, one of the things I always look forward to about summer is all of the fruit, like,
That's true.
eating all the, peaches and watermelon and berries, and it's so fresh and it just tastes so delicious,
Mm.
especially this time of year, because this is the season that it's growing, it's naturally growing. And that's because summer is characterized by that pitta dosha. Pitta is fire and water, right? So what are qualities of that? What are qualities of summer? What are qualities of fire? It's hot, it's
Yeah.
intense, it's sharp. And so these fruits that nature is naturally making during those climates and those seasons is sweet and juicy and cooling, right? Why do we enjoy eating, these fruits in the summer? Because they cool us down,
Mm.
right? And then moving into fall and winter, which is characterized by the Vata dosha. That is the ether, space, and air. And what are qualities of that? Dry, cold, light. You can think of in the fall season, the leaves on the trees
Yeah,
drying
falling
up and
down.
falling,
Yeah.
right? And so during that time, what you need to stay aligned, to not get out of balance, so many people, because as you know, I'm a Western physician as well. So many people I see coming into clinic, heading into the fall season with digestive issues. And that's because we need to adjust our diet as that season transitions. We need to adjust that diet from these cooling foods that we were eating in the summer, those fruits, the salads, to something that is a little bit more oily,
Mm-hmm.
moist, right? Because the fall
Yeah.
season is very dry. So in Ayurveda, a primary concept is that opposites pacify. So if you're going into a dry season, to stay in alignment yourself, you need to bring more oil into your life. So we often will use ghee, clarified butter, but bringing some of that sort of moisture through oil and lubrication. And then in terms of eating the kind of the local and seasonal food, what's growing really well at that time, those really hearty root vegetables, right? Which have a sense of grounding. So that Vata dosha is also characterized by a lot of mobility.
Yeah.
And so when you have a lot of that mobility, you can tend to feel spacey, almost too light and out of balance. It can lead to those digestive issues, as I mentioned before. And so eating those grounding foods, right? What's more grounding than eating a root vegetable that literally grows underneath the earth?
Yeah,
right?
It's literally bringing you back from like space and air down to the earth. Yeah, I love that.
And that's why it's eating these foods that are local and seasonally grown is really just getting yourself back in touch with nature's own intelligence and your body's own self-intelligence, realizing that nature provides everything that you need. And there are reasons that there are certain seasons in life and certain seasons of the year, and why certain fruits and vegetables grow during those times of year.
Love that. Nature is so intelligent.
Mm-hmm. Very intelligent, very intelligent. And I do believe, I know kind of your part two in that question was to talk about why it's important to take time in nature daily to calm the nervous and digestive systems. And, I truly believe that so many of the issues that many of us face these days, so many of the chronic conditions are related to just how out of tune we are to nature's rhythms. And there's a lot of science kind of looking at this now, as well as at the circadian rhythms, and aligning your daily life routines, your daily lifestyle to nature's circadian rhythms. And, with the advent of electricity and the lights in our homes, that does affect your own circadian rhythms. It affects the production of hormones in your body. It affects all of that. And so I think so many of the issues that many of us face is just because we're so out of touch with nature's rhythms. And I'm not saying that you need to, shut your electricity off and, live in a tent somewhere.
Yeah.
But as much in your modern daily life that you can get back in touch with nature, the better. As much as you can create your daily routines and lifestyle to follow nature's circadian rhythms. And Ayurveda does talk about, there's an Ayurvedic time clock. I mentioned earlier that different doshas are predominant during different times of day.
Yeah.
That being said, there are certain times of day are more ideal to perform certain activities or to eat certain meals than other times of day. And so the more you can align yourself with that, the more you can align yourself with nature's rhythms, the more aligned you are in general.
I love that it's not only about finding your own alignment within with the imbalances or misalignment that we were talking about before, but it's also about finding that within, but also around you with nature, with the food, with the season, with the circadian rhythms. I feel like it's a very whole way of looking at things, and also healing yourself or bringing positive things outside of yourself, within yourself, and vice versa. I don't know. I love how everything flows so perfectly together, the inside and the outside.
Yeah, because think about it. Even if you moved to a cave in the Himalayas, right, where it was just you all by yourself, right?
Yeah, let's imagine that.
Let's imagine. I'm not saying you're going to do that, but let's imagine that. Even if you did that, you are still interacting with the external world.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? You're still experiencing the weather outside. If it rains or it snows or it's cold or a strong wind blows by, you're still experiencing and interacting with the external environment. You still have to eat, right? Your body does need food and nourishment.
It does.
You still need to eat. And that is taking something from the external environment and putting it into your body that then assimilates into your body. Your body draws a nutrient to nourish it, to nourish the cells of your body. So you're literally taking something from the external world, putting it into your body transforms it, right, to provide that nutrition to the cells of your body. And that is very powerful when you really take a minute to sit down and think about it, and think about what are you putting in your body and how is that nourishing it. Your breath is another way that you are constantly interacting with your external environment, right? Simply through your breath. So even if you live in a cave in the Himalayas all by yourself, you're still interacting with your external environment. So we have to look at all of those pieces because all of those pieces definitely play a role.
Yeah. And I love this is very powerful, but at the same time, it's so normal. Like it should be kind of the norm. But since we're so used to packaged food, we don't really think about, oh, okay, nature is providing me this kind of food at this season and grows in the earth. So it's supposed to bring a little bit more anchor to myself, a little bit of groundedness, if that is even a word. But
I use that word. So whether
okay,
it is
so
or
here we
not,
go. A little
we'll
bit of
both agree that it is.
a little bit of groundedness. So it's so, I think that it is so logical and normal, but at the same time, we've been living our lives so differently with the industrialized world for so many years and so many centuries that the way that we disconnected and also like relearning. So yeah. So everything that you said is so powerful and normal and logical, but at the same time, it's so like, wow, like, yeah, obviously it makes sense since we were living in another kind of world.
Right. We've just drifted so far from it. And that's why
Exactly.
it seems so revolutionary. But when you really think about it, it is just going back to those basics. And
Yeah.
there's another concept in Ayurveda, prana, that does not exist within the Western traditions. There's not an equivalent for it in the Western traditions. And prana is sort of best defined as this vital life force energy. It's like this subtle energy in all of life. And
it's like the chai in
it's like chi, exactly.
yeah,
Chi in
sorry.
traditional Chinese medicine. Exactly. And so, kind of going back to what you were talking about in terms of eating foods that come from nature, as opposed to packaged and boxed foods. So packaged and boxed foods don't contain prana, right? So they have calories. Okay. So you will give your body calories, but it misses out on this subtle life force energy, this prana, which is in all living foods. So things like fruits and vegetables. In terms of also eating food that is grown locally. And again, these are everything we're talking about right now is kind of the ideals, right?
Yeah, obviously.
What I do and what I'm really passionate about in terms of the work I do with my one-on-one clients and in my group program is helping you adapt these concepts into your modern daily life. And everything that we're talking about, even if you take just one of these items and put it into practice or focus on just one of those items, you will start to notice a big difference in your life. So I think that's really important. One of my mantras is that small changes have a large impact. And so I just want to emphasize that because I know it could be potentially overwhelming hearing all these new words, these Sanskrit words, and all of these, oh gosh, now I need to find organic, local, and seasonal foods. Like everything we're talking about here is kind of the ideal, but it's going to be a matter of finding the way that it best fits into your life. And that's also where working with the consultants can be really, really helpful.
It's also a step-by-step process. Everybody has their own rhythm. Finding their own awareness is not going to be the same for everybody. So as you said, small changes are very powerful and just doing what works best for you. And the thing with the doshas is your own combination is very unique. So anything that you're going to do anyway is not going to be like the other person next to you. So you better do things. I like saying you do you.
Exactly.
And then you figure it out.
And that's something I really love about Ayurveda. It helps you honor yourself.
Yeah.
It helps you honor who you are. It definitely is a practice in self-care and self-love. And we also live in a society where it's so easy to compare yourself to everyone else. And especially like the social media, culture that we live in. And Ayurveda, as you get into Ayurveda, it really helps you honor yourself as a unique being and knowing that if one thing makes you feel out of alignment, but it doesn't, it affects your significant other in a different way, that's okay. And neither is right or wrong. It's just
the way it is.
You're unique beings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this concept of prana, 'cause I feel like I went on 2 or 3 tangents here, but this concept of prana, the reason I mentioned it is because when you eat food that is grown locally, it's closest to that source of prana. It contains the highest prana, that vital life force energy. The further away it goes, right? If you're eating fruit that has been, traveled a long distance to get to you, as it is kind of in the local grocery stores where I live,
Same here.
it loses prana, during all of that, right? The further away it is from when it was actually, harvested, it loses more prana. So that's another benefit, if possible, if it's accessible to you, farmers markets, things like that, can be really helpful.
Yeah, I'm really trying to eat more organic. I'm eating much more plant-based, but I used to buy my vegetables and fruits in the supermarket and not necessarily organic. Now I realize that eating locally and also having like this whole chain of harvesting and the way that they sell also be made with integrity, and also like making sure that it's been harvested without all of the chemicals, and also like sold fair trade, like paying everybody fairly, I think it brings everything like into the food that you I mean, I don't know how to explain that. It's very, it's very confused in my head, but it makes also a lot of sense. But when you add all of these components, which are not only respectful to the earth, but also respectful of the people who are doing the work, I think everything adds and is so much better. Like when you put that food into your body.
Yeah, I mean, it tastes different too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Again,
it does.
Cultivating that sort of subtle awareness, but it does. I don't know how to describe that, but it does. And part of that is Ayurveda does talk about, the energy of, we're all energetic vibrational
beings,
right?
Yeah.
And so is our food. And so the energy, the vibrations of everyone who is involved in the process of getting that food from the farm to your table, everyone, the cashier at the grocery store, the people driving the delivery trucks, everyone goes into that food.
Yeah. Thank you. That's what I was trying to say. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, definitely. That's not necessarily intuitive right away, but gaining this awareness and also gaining all of this knowledge around food, nutrition, Ayurveda, and other your own body, even like how you digest your food and what food works best for you. That's how you get to this point, and hopefully like further down the line in the future. But it's not it's a process.
It's a process, definitely. And at the same time, like I said, because I do realize, farmers markets or organic may not be accessible to everyone. And so if it isn't accessible to you, then, trying to maybe focus on foods that are just a little bit more seasonal, right? Even if it's not accessible to get the organic or from the farmers market, but things that are just more seasonal. So again, some of those fresh fruits in the summertime, some of those more root vegetables in the winter time. So finding an access point, because it's really important to me, these Ayurvedic practices and routines were not meant to be something that is exclusive, so finding the access point that works the best for you, that makes the most sense for you in your life, is so important.
Definitely. And everything doesn't need to be organic either way. Like, for example, fruits with hard skin, like banana or things like that. It's supposed to be the same quality. Ayurveda literally gets to the root of unhealthy choices and guides us towards different elements to cleanse the body, such as food, spices, and herbs, like we talked about before. Digestion is taken very, very seriously in Ayurveda. There is the digestion part, but there's also like the detoxification, which is very important in Ayurveda. So how does an Ayurveda diet work, and why these two parts are very important?
Yeah, so the Ayurvedic diet, sort of in general, we talk about, and you referenced it a little bit earlier, and I referenced it too. Actually, we've touched on it a little bit. Talks about sort of eating for your dosha. So if there is a dosha or an element that is out of alignment for you, and again, to determine that, it can be really helpful to meet with someone one-on-one. So you want to opposites pacify. So you want to eat a diet with foods that have qualities opposite to what is out of balance. So for example, I mentioned the air ether vata dosha. If that's the one that's out of balance, which for most people, that's the first one to go out of balance because that's the easiest to go out of balance actually.
Can you give like examples of imbalances, like qualities that will show you that the vata element is imbalanced?
Yeah, so you may be experiencing insomnia. You may be feeling very spacey, not spicy, spacey. You may be feeling very lightheaded. Yeah, it's sort of this overwhelmed sort of feeling. You may be feeling bloated or constipated. You may be experiencing very dryness in your body. So dry skin, dry cracked skin, things of that nature. So those are just a few examples of recognizing a vata out of balance. Any imbalance in Ayurveda starts first in your digestive tract. So regardless of which dosha is starting to get out of alignment, you start to see it in your digestive tract. That's where learning how to pay attention and have awareness of your body's signals can be really helpful, because it can start out as just subtle signals through your digestion of like feeling a little bit bloated or, irregular in going to the bathroom or things like that. It can start with those. And if you're able to target it and restore balance and alignment from that level, you prevent it from going any further. So that's where that can be helpful. So the Ayurvedic diet, that's a bit about how it works. You want to see kind of what is out of balance for yourself. And then there's diet specific to help target that dosha. Now, if you are in alignment, then generally we recommend following a diet that follows the seasons. So like I mentioned, if you are generally in alignment, and so you aren't working to sort of pacify any sort of imbalance or significant physical symptoms, mental, emotional symptoms, that sort of thing, then generally you want to follow a diet that goes with the seasons. So for the summer, which is characterized by pitta dosha, fire, water, that heat, that intensity, you want the opposites. You want to bring in things that are cooling, right? Coconut water, mint, cilantro. You want to bring in those fresh fruits, those cooling fruits, right? And then moving into the fall, early winter, you want those soups. You start moving into soups, things that have more of that moisture, right? Those root vegetables, that sort of thing.
Okay, so just to sum up to make sure like we're on the same page. So when we imbalance, we follow our doshas where the imbalances are. And when we are balanced, we follow the seasons and we make sure that we eat things that are opposite of the dosha that dominate the season.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And then you can get into, you can find these online. There are these extensive food lists as well. But I think, so many, and this is kind of my philosophy, there's so many different types of diets out there.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost.
It's easy to get lost. It's easy to get overwhelmed. And it's also easy to kind of feel overwhelmed or also limited, like overwhelmed by how extensive these lists are, or limited by telling yourself, gosh, I can't eat this, or making yourself feel guilty if you do eat that thing that is on your avoid list, right? And so the concept in Ayurvedic diet that I find very valuable and that I also share with all my clients is this: how you eat is more important than what you eat. How you eat is more important than what you eat. And I think that is so, so important. And that is one of the most, to me, important concepts. So how you eat is more important than what you eat. What does that mean? So if you are eating constantly rushed, if you're eating on the go, if you are standing up while you eat over the kitchen sink and then running out of the house, that is going to affect your digestion. You are not going to be able to assimilate the nutrition from whatever you're eating. Whether it's packaged or frozen or fresh or local, it doesn't matter, right? You can invest in all of the organic, local, seasonal food, but if you're eating it over the sink right before you run out of the house, you're still not going to gain all the benefits from it.
I read something about eating mindfully and in full consciousness. which
Yes.
is turn off or actually put your devices away and not eat in front of the TV or things like
Yeah.
that. I tried that for a month.
Uh-huh.
It's very beneficial, but it's so hard like to keep up with it because you feel like we live in a society where we so used to multitask.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel like you could do something else at the same time,
Yeah.
and you're like, so now I'm just eating and nothing else in silence. But once again, it's a process. It's a thing
Mhm.
to keep on doing
Yeah.
every now and then, even though it's not every day. But it really changes, and you actually feel the taste of the food. You feel
Yeah.
very like you feel full at the end of your meal,
Mm-hmm.
and you also know when you feel full because sometimes when you watch TV or you, I don't know, you're talking with people or etc., you're just like in the action of what's
Yeah.
going on around you and not necessarily within your body. So you keep on eating when you actually full. Your body doesn't need anymore, but you're just like stuffing yourself. But yeah.
Exactly. I'm
But
so glad you described that because I was going to ask you because I know you said it was beneficial. So I was going to ask you in what ways you found it beneficial. And so I'm glad that you went into that and described that you're able to taste the food better, more. You're able to recognize when you're full. You're
yeah.
absolutely right. When you're multitasking and eating and distracted, you're not picking up on your body because your body tells you when you're full.
Yeah.
And if you're eating slowly and mindfully, you're able to pick up on that signal.
And even another signal is like one food like that you train out or something that you used to eat but not mindfully. Your body tells you if it's right or wrong for you too.
Yeah.
Because then like your stomach starts growling or I don't know, something doesn't work well.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you usually in other settings you don't realize it, but
Yeah.
now you're just like, okay, this food, no, like cross off the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very, very important. Like, how do you eat personally?
At
Because
my
you're a
table.
very busy woman.
Yeah.
You do a lot of things.
I do a lot
So,
of things.
yeah.
So I eat at my table. So at my dining table, I make sure that I'm always sitting there and eating. I have flowers on my table. We were talking about flowers because you saw the flowers behind
Yeah.
me today. And so I always have fresh cut flowers on my table as well, because your body digests not only your food, but Ayurveda says that your body has to process and digest everything that you take in through your five senses. So I make sure to surround myself with beauty in my eating environment. And that's why I always have fresh cut flowers in a vase on my dining table. Ayurveda also says that digestion begins before you even start eating. So being mindful not only when you're eating, but also when you're preparing your food. Because your digestive process starts with all of your five senses, with feeling the vegetables as you're chopping them, with smelling, taking in the scent, the aroma of the spices as you are cooking and sauteing your vegetables in these spices and that sort of thing. So I sit at my table. I don't listen to anything when I'm eating. I eat in gratitude. So
Oh, right.
often expressing gratitude while I am eating. And I make sure, this is the hardest part for me, I'll be completely honest. The hardest part for me is finishing my last bite while still seated. So I'll sit down and I'll do this whole thing, right? And then the last bite, I'm like ready to get up and go do my next thing. So that, I'll be completely honest, right now, that's my biggest challenge. And so that's when I'm at home, and I do still, as I mentioned, I am still a practicing physician. So the days that I'm in clinic where it's very busy, running from seeing one patient to the next, I try to still engage these concepts as much as possible. So I do set aside, it doesn't have to take very long to eat your lunch. We don't get a kind of a set lunch hour, right?
Yeah, obviously.
In most places in medicine, you don't. And so it takes 10 minutes of just your undivided attention to sit down and finish your meal. And so just imagine just giving yourself that gift. Try to, kind of do the best that you can with that time frame that you have,
Yeah.
that you're at least not, standing up and eating over your desk. Like sit down,
Yeah.
sit down. And I always advise my colleagues to do the same. I'm always the one at work who's like, did you eat? Sit down and eat. We'll be fine. We'll keep moving,
Yeah.
And giving that meal your undivided attention is very, very beneficial.
Yeah. And I'm curious about why is Ayurveda so adamant in recommending cleansing the body if we eat clean and according to our predominant doshas, or according to the seasons if we are in balance or aligned? Can you enlighten us on Ayurvedic digestive reset cleanses, particularly at the join of seasons? Do they differ in any way from the multitudes of cleanses in the nutrition space or not?
Yes. So they do differ. and,
Yay.
and I believe you're referring to, so we call it panchakarma, which is kind of these Ayurveda cleanses, Ayurveda resets.
Yes. I wanted to say the word, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to mispronounce it. So that's why I went around it.
So these Ayurvedic cleanses or panchakarma are a big part of Ayurvedic healing practices, and these are these sort of resets. And I will say, if you're, because I know you asked in your question kind of why I recommend doing these cleanses if you eat quote unquote clean and according to your doshas all year round. And I will say, if you are doing that, then you probably need it a little bit less so, okay? But even if you are doing all of that, we're all constantly being exposed to so many different things on our daily life, so many different stressors, not only in our diet, not only, in our diet, but also just in our daily life, in our relationships, in our job, in our projects, and in all of that. And so these resets are an opportunity to reset all of that, not just your digestion. So there is a specific dietary recommendations during the cleanses, but also during that panchakarma, during that reset. Often body work is recommended. So body work is a big part of Ayurveda. So there's different sort of Ayurvedic massages that use specific types of oils, because these oils are felt to draw out toxins from the body and also improve your circulation and your lymphatics. And so that is a big part of this as well, of these cleanses and resets. Another big part of these cleanses and resets, ideally, is that you are also surrounding yourself in a very serene environment. As I mentioned, we process and need to digest all of our experiences, everything that we take in from our five senses on a daily basis. That means the conversations that we have, that means our life experiences, that means everything that we see in real life or on TV. Yes. Our brain processes that as still real. Everything that we hear, that we listen to, right? And so during a cleanse, during an Ayurvedic reset, you want to try to surround yourself in as serene environment as you can. So either going to a center, or you can certainly do a modified version at home. But if you do a modified version at home, you want to try to give yourself, ideally, take off from work for that time period, however long you decide to do it. If it's a week or 2 weeks, take off from work. If you're not able to take off from work, make sure you're planning to do this at a time where you don't have any like big projects coming up or anything like that. Another way it's different than some of the other sort of cleanses in the nutrition space is that it's not just your diet. Like I said, it is the body work. It is being very mindful of what you're allowing yourself to take in through your five senses during that time. So ideally being in a place with beautiful nature surrounding you, ideally being in a place where you are listening to nature sounds, or maybe some uplifting lectures, or reading some spiritual material, or uplifting material, inspiring material, things of that nature.
I really love that you mentioned body work. I will say including yoga, hijama, which is the cupping treatment, and other healing practices. Because when I thought about Ayurveda cleanses, I thought it was about eating a certain kind of food, or like a certain amount of food. Mm-hmm. So thank you. I have new information now. So that was also like the aim of this conversation, like to keep on diving into Ayurveda and knowing more. So it's not only about the food. Do you change anything about the food then for the cleanses, or is more about the other part of the body that we looking into?
Yeah. So the cleanses typically have a diet that consists primarily of a meal called khichdi, which is a combination of white basmati rice and mung beans.
Yeah.
And ghee.
I read about that. Yeah.
And clarified butter. And so that's the primarily the diet during cleanses.
So you're supposed to eat that every day for every meal?
Yes.
Okay.
And I love khichdi, and I make it and eat it probably about once a week anyways. just to kind of stay. And I also feel like that's just kind of a one day cleanse that I integrate into each week.
Okay.
As
So
well.
just to circle back. So is one particular meal, what are its benefits? And why is it just like one meal for each? Do you eat like for every, like 3 times a day then? Or is
Yeah,
just
so in the cleanses, yes, you eat it
okay.
3 times a day. And you can, again, depending on what sort of cleanse you're doing, depending on all of these cleanses are specifically tailored to you as well. So I would say, if anyone is considering doing a cleanse of this, I would say doing it with a consultant or a practitioner is going to be very important, because they will assess exactly what sort of things are out of balance and what sort of things need to get realigned.
Definitely.
And help tailor that to you, because then in that kitchery, they can tailor some of the spices. You can add some vegetables, but you would want those vegetables to be the vegetables that are balancing to whatever needs to be balanced and realigned for you.
Okay, now it makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because I was about to say, like, if we all unique with the different doshas, how come one meal works for everyone? Okay, now you clarified.
Yep. So it's the base of that one meal, but then it is tailored to each individual. So that's why, again, doing this sort of cleanse it's very highly recommended. I advise, if that's something you're considering doing it under the consult of a practitioner.
Yeah. And talking about practitioners, this foundation of daily self-care practices and education, like we're doing right now, empower anyone to take charge of their own health and prevent the imbalances that can lead to disease in the body and mind. Would you care to share a few tips and advice on how to prevent our body from buildup of toxins and how to recognize the imbalances?
Yeah. So the buildup of toxins, again, it is very much related to your digestion. And we talk about this digestive fire also. So this is another word I'm going to kind of throw out there of Agni. Agni means fire, that we all have this digestive fire. And one of the keys to preventing buildup of toxins is making sure that your digestive fire is very active. And so there are certain things that can stimulate your digestive fire. And this is for all doshas. So Vata, Pitta, or Kapha, we all have this digestive fire. And it's important that our digestive fire is stimulated and not dampened. Because if your digestive fire, Agni, is dampened, that interferes with your ability to transform the food into and metabolize it into the nutrients that you need and then eliminate the waste, right? And so what that does is, if your Agni is unable to function optimally, that can lead up to the buildup of toxins. And in Ayurveda, we call that the toxins buildup. We call that ama, A-M-A, ama. So a few kind of tips or advice on how to prevent your body from building up toxins would be to do things that will strengthen or at least not dampen your digestive fire, your Agni. So let me give you, I think maybe what will be most helpful here is to just give you a few very practical tips that are generally applicable to all the doshas.
Yeah, sure.
To not dampen your digestive fire. So one of those things, and this was actually one of the very first Ayurvedic tools that I incorporated into my own life over 11 years ago now, that is not to drink ice cold water. So that is huge. Here in the US, it is
ice all the time.
Ice cold water.
That's what I was about to say. Like, ice in America, it's a whole business, because every time you order a drink, like, you have ice like at the top, like literally at the top of your glass.
Yes.
So
yeah. So that was the first change that I made, was when I went to restaurants asking for room temperature or warm water. And not drinking the ice cold water that they would normally bring to the table. And then obviously doing the same at home as well.
But how does it work then in the summer when it's super hot? How do I cool down my body with water that it needs, but still like not going into ice cold water?
Yeah. So in the summer is the only sort of exception. So still not ice cold water in the summer, but you can drink water that's a little bit cooler temperature in the summer. Yeah. And then drinking other things also that are naturally cooling, like coconut water, is a great option as well. But yes, you can drink water that is a bit cooler temperature in the summer for sure.
I'm reassured. Thank you. Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you with that.
Yeah. And then other things to not dampen your digestive fire. Another thing is noticing when you feel full, just like you mentioned earlier. So again, practicing that mindful eating and not sort of overfilling yourself. So the digestive fire, if you think about a fire like a campfire, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you need for that campfire to keep going? Well, first of all, for the ice cold water, right? If you have a campfire and you throw a whole bunch of ice cold water on it, what's going to happen? The fire is going to go out, right? Yeah. So Ayurveda is very intuitive in this way. So think of a campfire. Also, think of a campfire. What do you need for that fire to keep going? You need some air, you need some moisture, and you need some earth elements. You need some sticks and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So similarly, for your digestive fire to stay strong, you need a proportion of your solid food, a proportion of liquid, but you also need a proportion of space still there, right? So you can't completely overfill yourself, right? That will dampen your digestive fire.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. In my research in Ayurveda, I heard that you're supposed to eat all the way to 70 or 75% your full belly, if I can say. So is that like the 25% kind of fork that you need to leave like for the space element?
Yeah. And another way I've heard it talked about is sort of a third of solid foods, a third of liquid, a third of liquid.
Yeah, here you go.
Earth,
yeah.
Right? Yeah. So similar.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are a few sort of practical tips. One, avoid ice cold water. Prefer to drink things that are room temperature or warm. Two, eat mindfully, right? Because not only will that help your digestive process, okay? Because the digestive process starts even before you eat, while you're preparing your food, in terms of your, right? And you know that because even as you're preparing your food, or if you go to a restaurant and you just smell the food, what happens in your mouth? You start salivating.
Yeah.
Your body starts producing the enzymes needed to digest in the anticipation.
That's true.
Of that, right? So eating mindfully, because that does affect your digestive process from the very start. And then also being mindful of when you feel full and not eating just to eat, but being mindful of when you're feeling full.
Yeah, super important. And leave the space.
Yeah.
Leave the space in between. And where can we find you, Sheetal?
Yeah. So I have a website, sheetalajmani.com. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Sheetal Ajmani MD.
I will add all of your social media in the show notes.
Great.
Thank you so much, Sheetal.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It has been so much fun to share and chat about Ayurveda with you.
Thank you to have taken the time to listen to me and my guest talking about conscious living. Conscious Matters is a self-produced podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and/or donate. 5 stars always preferred. Your support will help to keep on raising the collective consciousness together. Talk to you soon.